This is episode 29 of the Florida Sound Archive podcast. I'm Jeff Kaiser. It is April 3rd, 2022. Just celebrated April Fool's Day, and I hope everyone tuned in to the OnlyFans exclusive of Bad Baby. Actually, that really didn't happen, and I'm glad that it didn't. We have a better guest on right now, someone I'm super excited to have on the podcast, Samantha Jones. You may know her from a ton of bands. I can sit here and list all 100 of them, but we'll get into a few of them, as I'm sure, in our interview here today. Samantha Jones, welcome into the podcast. How are you?
Hey, I'm good, Jeff. Thanks for having me.
It is a pleasure having you on. I know you are a busy person. I know you got a lot going on. I know we all do going on right now. How have you been keeping busy with all the things going on with COVID? I mean, you're a real, artist. You are a performing musician, and you do yoga. So how's that all been working for you with what's been going on?
Interestingly, over the past 2 years, playing live there's been just a ton of creativity about being able to pull off live shows, and a lot of porch practices, a lot of attempts at recording with the software that I have, but I'm really not much of an engineer, unfortunately. I had an idea in my head that I would just have volumes of work to share after being isolated and being under that brief lockdown, but music has been cool. We had a show on my porch. We just had people ride bikes by and sit in lawn chairs, and they were all 6 feet apart. My friends Jacob and Chelsea started a whole series of outdoor shows where they would set up professional equipment, they would film, and they were all in just nature locations. So we had a generator, and so we figured out ways to play music. In my personal life, teaching yoga, I had to go directly from teaching in-person classes to teaching on Zoom to back to teaching online classes, and so back and forth between being in studio and being virtual. And now I'm working at the Florida School of Massage, which is
Nice.
a vortex of awesomeness, and playing music with my songwriting soulmate, Kara Smith, and just doing the day-to-day stuff.
Yeah.
Making art, growing plants.
Nice.
Things, yeah.
Are there any similarities between massage therapy and the music that you played over the years?
Well, interestingly enough, I always felt like I had 500,000 hats to wear, and certainly there is some connection. I don't know if I would make a direct connection between doing massage and playing music, but yeah, I mean, I guess everything, there's just this common thread of just being in a flow state, like if you're playing music and you're really able to meditate on it, and you're able to really get in the pocket and get in the zone. It's the same thing with doing an hour of yoga. To me, it feels meditative. It feels kind of that otherworldly space where you can kind of zone out. And
right.
Massage therapy requires more attention, but there is that quality of just focusing and dropping in. So yeah, I never would have made that parallel if you wouldn't have asked. Thanks for that.
I was thinking about that. I was like, well, maybe there is a parallel between, and I wouldn't know because one, I can play a little bit, but I wouldn't call myself a musician, and I'm definitely not a massage therapist or a yoga instructor. So question for you.
Yeah, I mean, there were definitely times in all three of those aspects where I felt like I was less in like my busy mind and more in that kind of cerebral space. So yeah.
Right. Man. Gotcha. So let's kind of go back a little bit. And I'm pretty sure, correct me if I'm wrong, that you actually aren't from Gainesville, but you grew up in Pensacola. Is that right?
Yeah, I did. I grew up in Pensacola, and my girlfriend and I moved to Gainesville when I was 19. I think we were both 19, because we were listening to bands like Spoke and Radon, and we wanted to play in a band. Pensacola, as a whole at the time, was not kind to women who wanted to play music or young girls who wanted to play music. And I have a whole last story about that if you want to hear it. But yeah, so I'm
Yes.
from Pensacola. I've lived in Atlanta and I've lived in St. Augustine, but Pensacola and Gainesville have been my kind of like home. I've traveled everywhere, but these are the two places where I've spent the most of my life.
Yeah. What's the story? Let's go back to that.
The story was we were all teenagers, right? So me and my little crew. And I have always been a tomboy, so I always hung out with all the dudes. And we were 14, 15 years old, and the dudes started a band. And I was like, I want to play in the band, guys. And they literally were like, no, you're a girl. And it infuriated me. And I think it was actually helpful for me because, man, I just went home and I just started shredding. I was just like, I was going to learn everything that I could learn. I think that I was really able to take that kind of rejection and turn it into some kind of fuel, you know?
Yeah.
So fast forward, 14, 15, like 8, 9 years later, I'm tuning up for a show. I'm like looking down at my floor tuner, and like these toes appear, like a person is standing right in front of me. And it's just like there's 120 people packed out in this little punk club, and I'm tuning, and I look up, and it's freaking Danny Rigby. And he's like, Samantha, Danny Rigby, who said I could not play in the band because I was a girl. And he was like, I'm so sorry. I was such a dick when we were teenagers. And I was like, thanks, Danny. I'm going to go ahead and play this show now. And so out of all of the people that I grew up with, like I was the one who like took it the farthest and did the things. And maybe it's because they pissed me off so bad.
A lot of rebellion in you on that, huh?
Yeah, I guess. Yeah. I actually started playing guitar because I I was 12, so I must have been graduating from some middle grade. And my mom thought I was going to get really good grades on my report card. So we were very poor, and she went and bought this $4 guitar from the thrift store. And when she got my report card, it was very, very bad. And she said, well, you're grounded for the whole summer, but you can still have this guitar, I guess. And I was like, oh, all right. So that was the start of me playing, as I spent the whole summer grounded playing guitar.
What were some of the earliest songs you remember trying to learn at that time?
When I was young, I learned like some Spanish, like flamenco stuff. I learned a lot of Dead Milkman songs. I learned all of Metallica's Master of Puppets from start to finish, which is funny because my teenage son, okay, so I learned all the rhythm parts because I'm kind of more of a rhythm guitarist. And my teenage son at 14 actually learned all of the solos. So that's kind of funny and cool.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and then I just started writing. I have always been a songwriter, so I started writing my own stuff. That was kind of the purpose for me.
Were you influenced a lot from the music your parents were listening to? Did you have any siblings growing up?
My mom listened to a lot of The Doors and Jefferson Airplane, a lot of classic rock. I still love classic rock to this day. The 20 songs that they play on the classic rock radio station, Radar Love and whatever. So yeah, my mom had a record player and we would listen to records together. And I had this neighbor, just this weird random dude. I don't even remember his name, but he came by one day and he gave me 3 cassette tapes. It was Naked Reagan, Alice Donut, and Dead Kennedys. And I was just a teenage kid, and he's like, think you ought to listen to these. And I was like, all right, sure. And my brother was really into the Beatles. My brother was really into REM. So we always had a piano. We always had a guitar. I was the only one that used them, but those things were always around. So.
Yeah. Sounds like quite a good mix of music that you got the chance to grow up with.
Yeah.
Very nice. And one thing I've heard, and this is kind of skipping ahead a little bit, but in one of your band's Guts, more of a soul kind of R&B vibe. Did you grow up with any of that too, or did that come later?
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just always been part of the fabric of my life and my existence. Like, I love all kinds of music except opera. I'm really not that into opera, but everything from classical to like rap. I love rap music. I love classic rock. I love dance music, folk music, ambient music for yoga, all kinds of stuff. And one of my first records that I got from my record player when I was a kid was, a Michael Jackson record. So,
of course,
yeah.
That was a lot of our first. Was it Thriller, Off the Wall?
Yeah, it was Thriller, where it folded out and he was like hanging out with the white tiger.
Right. Yeah. The tiger in the background. Yeah. And I know, I'm pretty sure my copy had like an insert you can order, like the jacket.
What?
Yeah. You got to find a copy with the insert. The insert's more interesting than the record itself, I think.
I'm sure it's more valuable. I don't think mine had that.
It could be. Yeah,
I didn't have the jacket, unfortunately.
Yeah. I didn't either, but so well, that's fun. That's really neat. So I'm glad to hear that you kind of remember some of those things. And and then you in your teens, you moved up to Gainesville. Were you intent upon relocating, joining a band? Like, is that kind of what you were set on at that time?
Yeah. I always joke that I kind of lived the American dream backwards. Like, from a very young age, I was writing songs. When I was a kid, if we were on the boardwalk, I would jump up on the stage and pretend to do a little song and dance. I was always just kind of a performer. And so playing music quickly just kind of hooked into part of my identity and who I was. And so we moved here not to go to the University of Florida. Like, we moved here to be in a band, and we did. That was Jessie from Vanbuilderass. And I think we got in a couple side bands before she actually started Vanbuilderass. And then Nancy, the guitar player, left, and I started playing with them.
Yeah. Vanbuilderass is one of those bands where I think there was only like one like EP 7-inch that was put out. And it was
okay, so we recorded an entire album.
I was wondering about that.
And then we broke up and the album's lost.
Oh, no.
And this is like not the first time that something that I've done is fallen through the cracks. It's really interesting. I'm a terrible archivist, and I kind of joke that I just don't really have a rear view mirror. Like, I'm very forward thinking. I'm not sentimental. And I mean, some of those things just fell by the wayside, and I was just like, oh, well, going, But yeah, there's an entire album. It's the one that I recorded with them. We recorded at Rob McGregor's studio, and just nobody even has any idea.
Oh man. And speaking of Rob McGregor, I know you have recorded at his studio quite a number of times. Golden Tone, I think is
Golden Tone.
Yeah.
But
so
it used to be Turd Studios.
Turd Studios. Yeah.
Yeah. What he started out with.
What are your memories working with him and recording at that studio?
Rob is a friend, and so recording with him always felt very familiar. and always felt really accessible for me. So it was easier to take risks, or it was easier to get things right in 1 or 2 takes, because when you have nerves and clocks ticking, things cost money, you'll make more. It actually takes longer. So the few times that I've recorded in bigger studios, there was less of a feel of ease, I think. But recording at Rob's, well, like Against Me was recording their Reinventing Axl Rose album at Rob's studio. And it was just really easy to be like, jump on and sing this part, which became like an iconic part. And a lot of stuff like that would happen. I played harmonica, had a harmonica solo on like the whole second bridge of this Bitchin song, and Bar told me I couldn't keep my harmonica solo, but there was space to experiment with that kind of stuff because it was less pressure.
It's cool you bring that up, because there's actually quite a few recordings that you're on where you're not just singing and playing guitar, where you do play other instruments. So was that just picking things up and just playing around, or did you actually have some experience playing like drums and harmonica and that sort of thing?
No, I practice playing guitar, bass, and drums. Piano, I just plink around on it from time to time. I always used to joke, like, I could pick up any instrument and like play a tune on it. And then I picked up a trumpet and was humbled. So that's not true.
I mean, and just speaking about trumpet, one of the most well-known bands out of Gainesville, Less Than Jake. So any memories of seeing them back in the day, and maybe any opportunity of jumping on stage at any point with them too?
Oh no, Less Than Jake. They're my peers and they're my friends. My best friend used to play saxophone with them. It's funny, they recently did a music video at the yoga studio that I used to own. So they're great guys, actually. They're really super people. And they came in and they did like this fitness video. It was very silly. It was one of their ways of keeping their band kind of in the public attention during COVID, was to do these videos. So they came to the studio and my kid was thrilled to meet them. Nice. But no, I don't think I ever did anything with them.
Yeah.
Music wise, no.
Okay. I wasn't sure if maybe there was like a live show, or maybe you popped on stage and maybe did play a little trumpet or something,
No.
You never know. I mean, I'm sure they've had a lot of gigs over the years in Gainesville, so you never know. Like, hey, come on up here.
I am legit the worst trumpet player.
Okay.
It's like oil and water. We would play shows together, like they would play and my band would play, but there was no collaboration.
Right. Some of the other bands you mentioned, Less Than Jake being one, Radon, Spoke. A lot of these bands were on the homegrown Gainesville label, No Idea Records, which was kind of like the Discord records of Gainesville in a way. A lot of the members would partake in other bands. So did you know, kind of before you moved up there, that there was this label that was kind of like that up there?
When we first moved here, I didn't understand labels. I know that there are some avid record collectors who would follow a label and want to listen. Well, that's not true. That's not true, because my girlfriend and I used to collect the Sub Pop Single of the Month Club records that would come out. But as far as being on a label, no, I didn't really realize its notoriety until I had come down here and was a part of it all. And it's funny, we just drove by the No Idea office the other day where it used to be. It was interesting. Being on a label is well, I mean, I have a label now, Ashtray Monument. I would like to talk about them a little bit. at some point, but with No Idea, it was interesting because, and with all labels, I imagine, but the whole idea is you brainstorm, you write the songs, you record the songs, and then you tour. And before this digital age where music was really widely accessible and you could listen to anything on Spotify or on YouTube or whatever, that was really how you got your name out, was getting reviewed in magazines and traveling. And so there was, I don't know if it was really, maybe I felt some internal pressure to keep up with that pace, but I'm extremely introverted. And so playing back-to-back shows, I didn't understand that I was introverted at the time. I enjoyed playing my songs. I enjoyed people enjoying them. And then afterwards, when people would want to talk to me, and small talk is like deadly. It's like, it's really hard for me.
Yeah.
And I realized more and more how depleting it kind of was, even though the shows were enjoyable.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you find that there were people approaching you after the show, before the show, just to chat about the music and that sort of thing?
Yeah, totally. And it meant a lot to me. It means a lot to me when people want to share that something that I've done has inspired them or helped them. I mean, that's kind of what it's all about, right? I think we all need to kind of figure out our avenues for inspiring and being of purpose in the world.
Right.
But I would sometimes just try to go out to eat, and people would be like trying, it was, I think when people think of like people who are rich and famous, it's like the richness gives you some privacy. But if you're just if you're just a public person, you don't really, you can't afford the privacy. So, I mean, I'd have to go to the laundromat like anybody else, or, I'd have to go to the grocery store.
Yeah.
There was a time where it was a little wild. It's obviously less wild now, but
yeah. And I guess you can remain anonymous a little bit with having your groceries delivered these days if you wanted to.
It's funny to used to be a big deal. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
I like being a small deal.
Yeah.
Being a small deal.
I gotcha.
I like playing. Friends will come. I love just doing house shows.
Yeah.
Playing out in venues and stuff, and not having to do it every single night of the week because it's expected of me,
Right. Understood.
Yeah.
Another band you were in maybe around the same time or a little bit after Vanbuilderass was quite different in the sound, the Crustaceans.
Yeah.
Was that around the same time, or did it start during? Like, talk about that a little bit if you could.
Yeah, Crustaceans is wild. So it was me and Carl and Brian, and Carl Bullock and Brian Sparks, and we were a three-piece. And I came with my background of rock music and listening to Bach all the time, and Carl came with his kind of world music influence, and Brian came with just the ability to play freaking whatever. So it was a really interesting confluence, and it was always just fun. We put out a couple records. We didn't record at Rob's, we recorded at a different studio, and I remember feeling nervous in that studio. And when I listen to the recordings, I can hear, of course, I'm the most critical of what I've done, but I remember feeling nervous at that time and not feeling that kind of expansive, like it's okay to make mistakes. We can do one or two takes. I felt just a little inhibited, I think. When we played live, it was insane. Like, there was a lot of movement, there was a lot of joy, there was a lot of singing and harmony. There's no way I could describe adequately what the sound was, because we would literally back up a heavy metal song with like a ragtime. Like, it was really unique. And we got to
Mm-hmm.
do a lot of cool stuff. We got to play a lot of big festivals. The day, 2 or 3 days after we broke up, we got a letter from Sony. Sony, or I have a terrible memory too. We got a letter from like a really big deal record label asking what we were going to do with our future, and we were like, well, nothing. But we toured.
Good response.
We actually have decided after 7 years that we can't stand each other. But yeah, we played with Parliament, we played with Funkadelic, we played with James Brown, we played a lot of the bigger like fairground festival. You know.
It definitely had more of a sound that may reach more people.
For sure.
I don't know why. I got like almost like not every song, but I did get almost like a jam band kind of vibe from Crustaceans. Yeah. Were you all listening to a lot of those bands like Grateful Dead, Fish, that sort of thing at that time?
Oh, hell no. I actually like recently in my adult years accidentally caught myself enjoying a Grateful Dead song, and I was like, what have I become? I think Carl might have listened to that kind of stuff. It was one of those things again where, like you mentioned earlier, you could really just kind of get in the flow of it, and if a part sounded good, then why not play it 16 times instead of 8, you know? Yeah.
Yep.
And we were all talented enough musicians to where we could read each other and be like, okay, we're going to keep doing this, or we're going to change this up, or we were all really in sync with each other. So it was really an interesting convergence of just talent and wildly differing styles, and rapport, just having a good rapport with each other.
Yeah. And I think also, which again, I think shows your creative side, is it just seemed like you were just wanting to express in other ways, because you put out a cassette too under your name around the same, like 97, I want to say. So talk about that a little bit. And was that the reason? Because you just had all these different interests, you just wanted to just keep expressing them in that sort of way?
Yeah, so there was just a time where, I mean, I was in 2 or 3 bands. I didn't really have to work very much. I didn't, and like I mentioned, I moved to Gainesville to play music. I wasn't in college. I worked at a bar. So, I mean, I worked 2 or 3 nights a week. Rent was a lot cheaper back then. I didn't have any responsibilities. And so there was so much time to find inspiration, and there was so much time to write songs. And I remember Amanda, who played in Vanbuilderass with me, we lived in an apartment together for a little while. We would wake up in the morning, make a pot of coffee, and just sit and play guitar for 8 hours a day. Like, we didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah.
You know? And so when you have that much time, you produce a lot. You can produce a lot more. Yeah.
I think it just also just showed your depth of what you could do, because, you know, from like punk, it's almost like jam bandy kind of rock to
you have to quit saying jam band, dude. I'm begging you.
Fair. All right. I'll meet you on that. And then your solo cassette. And then I don't know if you were aware, you know, when your band Baroque was around, they kind of got the emo label. And I don't know if you knew, like at that time, because I think when you go back that far, I think a lot of people weren't as aware as they are probably today, when we're conscious of genres and that sort of thing. But were you aware of that whole scene too? Because you all played with some really stalwarts of the genre, Mineral, Sensefield, that sort of thing. So what are your memories of playing with Baroque?
To me, it was okay. So playing in Crustaceans was really just everybody pulling in all these influences from all over the place. My solo stuff evolved into Cassette, so I still play as Cassette sometimes. And the whole idea behind Cassette was just, this is Cassette. I write these songs. I will either play them by myself, or I will play them with my friend Kathleen Kennedy, or I will play them with this symphony, or I will play them with two drummers, or I will play them with whoever, you know. So that's why every one of those albums sounds so dramatically different. The only unifying piece is that I wrote the songs. And so with Baroque, Jack Bailey's influence, I think, was something that my heart was just kind of wanting, you know. And so the way that he played the drums, the input that he had on the stuff that I was doing on guitar, he was really influential in that sound. And it was still just me writing sad songs, you know, like, so
Yeah.
I think that he probably had a pretty huge influence on that sound.
Is that a similar situation as Vanbuilderass, where there was an intent to do a full LP?
Well, I don't even know if I should tell the story of what happened to Baroque, because it got dramatic. I wasn't involved in any of the drama, but it got pretty dramatic, and that it had to dissolve.
Oh no. Anything you can share about? I mean,
you know, there was just people, there were just people getting in each other's business, so to speak. And I was sad to see it end, but I just guess people just get in each other's business sometimes.
That's definitely something that happens, right? So unfortunately,
I wish you could coax the dirt out of me on that one, but I don't know.
That might be for the book whenever that comes out. And there were members of Blacktop Cadence that played in Baroque as well, and they were on a compilation called the Emo Diaries. And I was really surprised that Baroque didn't have a song on one of those compilations. Were you ever approached to have a song on one of those compilations?
I don't think so. I think we just kind of were like a sparkler. You know, you light it and it's super fantastic and it's fun, and then it's done. You know, we put out that little 7-inch, and that was really just kind of it. So, and then there was the drama. So
Right, and the drama. You talked about Cassette also as something you've been doing for quite a while. When I listen to the Cassette songs, the ones that I've been able to hear that are available, I find that is like your most personal music. Maybe I'm wrong as an outsider looking in, but that just comes to me when not just the lyric, but the song titles. It just seems like a very personal side of you. Is that right? Is that, or is it, that's not the case?
Yeah, I mean, so music for me got me through, I mean, this is the generic music, got me through hard times portion of the interview, but I mean, like, pretty, I know, cue up the tiny violins, but my life required some kind of outlet. Like, I needed some kind of way to channel the things that I had endured and the things that I had been subjected to and the things that I was putting myself through and the things that I was consequently, and just the experiences of my life. And so, yeah, you're totally right about that. It is a lot more personal. And I honestly took a break from doing Cassette for a while because I would play and more than a handful of people would be crying, like just a lot of crying people. And I really honestly believe that's why Guts came so close on the tail end of me doing Cassette stuff, and the Deep and Holy Sea and Cassette were playing at the same time. But with Guts, I was just like, let's write dance music. Like, let's write music that people will like go nuts over and just have fun. Because I don't know, I'm a sensitive person. I don't want to make people cry. Maybe they need to cry. Maybe they need that kind of cathartic stuff. But I don't know. It was hard for me to be a catalyst for that in a public
Yeah.
space,
Well, I think that's good though. You're the different music that you've created over the years, all these different moods, so whatever you're feeling, if I'm feeling a little more angsty, I can get into some Bitchin, some Vanbuilderass. If I want to feel a little more mellow, maybe I'm feeling a little more emotional. Cassette, a good
Deep and
place for that.
holy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Deep and Holy. Yeah. And another band that you were in, which was kind of like a super group in a way, Rumbleseat, which
Yeah, we'll see.
had some pretty deep songs. And I would say out of all the bands you were in, that one may have the most notoriety because of Chuck and Chris from Hot Water Music. So
Yeah.
what are
Not
your
really though, because Bitchin was actually probably the biggest band I was ever in.
okay? Yeah,
Mhm.
which love Bitchin too.
Yeah.
So what are your memories of Rumble Seat kind of starting and just being able to be a part of that trio?
Well, I remember that I mean, same situation, Chris and Chuck were full-time musicians. Like I think they had to pick up piecemeal jobs here and there, but mostly they just recorded, went on tour, and so there was just so much time. I'm just really beginning to believe that not necessarily inspiration, but the execution of creative things requires a lot more time than we're sometimes afforded as people in a capitalist society. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
they always had time to play, and they were night owls. So they would just stay up all night. And, Chuck and I were together at the time. And so he wanted me to play with them. And I got this beautiful bass from a yard sale. And I love playing bass. And we just all sang together beautifully. And so a lot of it just kind of came together really easily. And we got to do some really fun stuff. We got to play with David Allen Coe, and we got to open for like Hank Williams III and real country stuff,
Right.
Yeah.
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 Was that the first time that you had a chance to like tour and places like I think you all played a show in Chattanooga? Was that the first time you got a chance to tour a little more of that side of the country?
No,
Mm.
Bitchin did several US tours. Yeah. Actually, we did a couple smaller tours. Vanbuilderass toured. We toured all the way up to Boston and back with Hot Water Music. And Bitchin, we put out, gosh, an LP and like 4 or 5 singles, but we went out west all the way. We did the whole United States. That's the biggest tour I've ever done. It took 6 weeks. We went out to San Francisco. We were on the cover of Maximum Rock and Roll, and I walked into Mission Records, and that particular issue was the one that was out for that month, and it was just like my face, like just in the front window, like it was just lined up, just like copy after copy after copy, and I was like, whoa,
Yeah.
that's wild. And so yeah, we did a packed house show at Mission Records. So no, I honestly don't remember touring a lot with Rumbleseat at
Mm.
all. Like,
Yeah.
I remember playing a lot of Gainesville shows. I remember going to Chattanooga because so because everyone was on acid, and it got really wild. And also Bitchin was playing, and I remember having these little oyster crackers in my hand, and they were laced with acid. And I had given one to Chuck, I had given one to someone else. And then Caroline, the bass player from my band, was like, "Ooh, what's that?" And I was like, "Well, surely she knows. No one gets excited about oyster crackers. And she's like, "I'm so hungry." And I was like, "Haha, here, you can have the oyster cracker. But it turns out that she didn't realize that they had acid on them. So I accidentally dosed my bass player. And
What was
we,
the fallout of that?
oh my God. So Bitchin played, we held it together. Rumbleseat played, we started playing, and we were all kinds of messed up. And I think we played for like an hour and a half. And then at the end of the night, Chuck was face down on the trampoline crying. And I went and I was like, dude, are you okay? And he's like, it's all so beautiful. It was a mess. It was a really big party. It was a really big party. I think they tried to do a thing where 20 bands played, like a house show.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
so, it was really nuts. And Tony actually went with us on that trip. Tony Weinbender was our designated driver or something. But
did you have a favorite club or city that you had a chance to play in any of those early tours?
No, I really enjoyed being on the road. I really enjoyed seeing new places. When you tour, you're always received at the places that you go. So you're less like a tourist. There are people waiting for you. There are people excited to see you. There are people that are expecting you, and they'll take you into their houses and they'll show you their favorite coffee shops. And, you kind of get an opportunity to see how people really live, like their garden and their neighborhood. And so that was always really neat for me. The wild thing about the range of stuff that I've done is when Cassette toured with the Felice brothers, we had this opportunity to see these massive venues. And when Cassette recorded in Chicago, we recorded at the same studio that Modest Mouse recorded The Moon in Antarctica. It was like this $4 million studio. And then I went on tour with my baby, and we played all acoustic shows and all non-smoking shows and all shows that started at like 4 or 5 in the afternoon, so that I could be on the road and take my kid with me. And that was honestly one of the most insanely fun tours that we went on.
And considering a lot of bands of that period would, one, travel by van, and two, would a lot of times shack up at someone's house using couches and floors. So how was that with having a small child at that time?
It was wonderful. It was really freaking cool. We got kicked out of an apartment pool. We we told people ahead, like, hey, we're coming to play and we're bringing a baby. I brought a babysitter, so she would take care of him while I played. And then after we played, either I would go out and she would stay with the baby, or she would go out and I would stay with my baby. So she was thrilled just to be able to travel and listen to music and hang out with a cute little kid. And people were so excited to see a freaking baby. Like, it was such a novelty at the time, but I was playing in Cassette in the Deep and Holy Sea, and the microphones came through. The Deep and Holy Sea played with them, and I was gonna go and I was gonna play the show, but man, I literally just had a baby. But then after that, Carl Blau came through, and we did play with him and the Blow. And I was talking to Carl because he was a father, and I was like, what do you do when you have like a baby and you're a musician? He's like, oh, you take him with you. They're super portable. And I actually recently reached out to him and I was like, I don't know if you remember me or if you remember saying this to me, but that was one of the most impactful little bits of advice that I've ever gotten probably in my life. So they are very portable.
Right. It can be.
Yeah.
Depends on the child.
Yeah. Well, no, I mean, literally, like, you're a nucleus.
Right.
That baby's an electron, and you go and it follows. Like, you create the environment, Yeah. So that was a really neat tour.
Yeah. And was that the Bitchin tour?
Oh God, no. Someone spilled beer on the baby. Yeah. No. That was a Cassette and Deep and Holy Sea.
Okay. I was assuming that, but I didn't want to say for sure. So
no. It was
yeah.
That's funny.
What
That's
would
fun.
would the baby have seen on the Bitchin tours?
Well, it's funny because I've always been a yogi, and I've always been it's I was a little bit older than Caroline or Todd. Like I think they were 25 and I know I must have been like I was a little bit older than them. I was like 7 or 8 years older than them. And on tour, they would go nuts. Like every night, they would be like staying up late and partying. I would stay up late and party every now and then, but mostly I would play the show and I would go be introverted and sleep in the van every now and then. When I did go buck, I went very buck. And most nights I just preferred to rest. And then everyone else would wake up in the morning and they'd be like, oh, my back, my knees. And I was like, what? I was like, went to the coffee shop and did yoga and like I've already read an entire book. Like, so that was kind of my thing, was staying sober and waking up and exploring. So
I was wondering.
I'm not trying to sound like a saint. Like, definitely,
of course.
I definitely got into some stuff, but
I'm sure it certainly helped though, having those outlets of the yoga. And I was wondering that too, like, when did that start? Like, did that start around that time? Did that kind of predate that?
No, I started a yoga practice when I was 12.
Oh, wow. That's been a long time, way before music then.
Yeah, no, I actually started playing guitar when I was 12 too.
Oh,
yeah.
Nice.
The two things I've stuck with.
See, they go hand in hand, apparently. There's that parallel right there. So nice. So did you find that you had opportunity to do your yoga when you were on tour? Was that important for you to make sure you got in?
Yeah, sure, absolutely. And again, I would just wake up and stretch out and walk around and do my little meditative practices before most people got up in the morning. And I also, I have a little bit of a tunnel vision kind of experience of, a very subjective memory. Like, I don't know what everybody else was doing. I was just kind of doing my own thing. So everybody, anybody else that you talk to might have a different story, but.
Did other members of the tour ever partake with you in the yoga?
Brontez Purnell did yoga with me in Chattanooga once. Now nice. He's out in California. He played in a Gravy Train. Yeah, he's still doing amazing stuff. He was interested. He wanted me to teach him some yoga.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice. And then was it after Bitchin? And I kind of, a lot of your bands kind of intersect to a degree. So there's not like, well, it was this year, and then new band. After Bitchin, your next project you were spending more time with, was that the Deep and Holy Sea?
After Bitchin and Baroque overlapped, I think. And then Cassette, and then Crustaceans was kind of throughout. Like, that was a really long band. So that was like years and years. And then I started doing kind of the Cassette stuff, which led to David asking me to play in the Deep and Holy Sea, which is, I listened to that album today. Okay, now I'm going to take a little segue and I want to talk about my friend Drew DeMaio, who plays in Strike Force Diablo and is a big figure in the Gainesville history. He started a label called Ashtray Monument, and he reached out to me and he was like, why isn't any of your stuff online? And I was like, I don't know, man, I'm old and I don't care about this stuff. I found a shoebox the other day that someone else had made for me, that they had put like one of each of my CDs in. If they hadn't have done that, I wouldn't even have my own records. And so he reached out to me. He's like, I'm doing this label now. I want to put out everything that you've done digitally, because that's where we're at now. And I was like, wow, that's really kind. And so we're still working on all of those archives and releasing them. And he's waiting for me to do something new. Wow, I just totally forgot the question. Why did I just make that right turn there? because we were talking about
That's okay. We were talking about at what
Deep and
point
Holy
Deep
Sea.
and Holy
Okay.
Sea come in, but that was, I mean, that ties into that though, because
Yeah, because he released the album,
right, he
right?
released the album. Yeah,
Yeah. So I
yeah.
like listened back to that and I'm like, how in God's green earth did we pull that off? Like, how did we manage to have a violinist, a
Mm.
cello player, a stand-up bass, a piano player, a drummer? Like, I can't even find a drummer right now, you know? It was really crazy. And
Yeah.
then David writes these really vivid, just very multi-textual songs that really paint a picture in your head. And for me, I feel lucky that I am both the creator and an accompanist. Like, I can write a song, sing it by myself. You could write a song, and if I find my way into it, I can harmonize beautifully. I can write like the good little hook to go with it. I think that's a skill that I'm really proud of.
Yeah.
And so working with David, we sang together beautifully. Sometimes he would take the high
Mhm.
harmony and I would take the low harmony, and sometimes he would take the low and I would take the high. And so things would just kind of like, there was a real like sense that things were kind of weaving and kind of pushing and pulling, and it created a really dynamic sound. So, and I don't know if you know anything about violin, but apparently you have to do like 10 tracks for it to sound good. So, you know, Ame is just the epitome of just the diva violinist.
Yeah.
And you know, she was really willing to put that time in to make sure that her tone was right. So when you listen to it, it's just like you know, it's like
Right.
it still stops me in my tracks. And I don't know, it was definitely a big confluence of amazing people.
I usually find that people who are classically trained like that typically do more improvisation. Did she do the same for that, or maybe when you played any shows?
Yeah, she would sometimes go
Mm.
off book, but mostly, I mean, we didn't practice much, so there
Mm.
wasn't a lot of room for people to go to book. We would kind of have to stay like on book, but uh she's like a freaking virtuoso. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, when she played for UF, I think they loaned her like $1 million violin just to hold on
Wow.
to, you know. Yeah,
That's awesome.
she's a real
Yeah.
gem. And
Yeah.
Kyle Vector, the cellist, he moved to Chicago and started this whole, oh, I'm sorry, was part of the collaborative force who started this whole cinema mechanica thing, where it's just like a play with an orchestra and it's
Mm.
all puppets and actors and live music. So he went on to really orchestrate some pretty amazing things. They're just all really unique and amazing people. Still talk to them. They're still my friends.
It's good.
Yeah,
Yeah.
they're still doing cool stuff in the world. Yeah.
Nice. One of the first bands that came into my head when I first heard the Deep and Holy Sea
Mm-hmm.
was Belle and Sebastian.
Oh, really?
Popped in my head as maybe the second, third track, especially when you started to harmonize
Mm-hmm.
as well. Did that ever cross your mind? That kind of vibe?
No.
Because that's kind of the kind of sound that I hear when I listen to that.
Really?
Yeah.
No, I like that one song of theirs, the Arab Strap one, and then I really never listened to a lot of their albums. I really, for better or for worse, like I don't really follow like a lot of bands. When I listen to music, I think I'm guilty now of doing kind of the same thing that a lot of people do, where I just like songs. You know, I like songs. I don't really listen to like full albums much. Gosh, you know, just saying that out loud makes me feel like I probably should, but
That's one of the nice things about listening to some of your music is
yeah.
especially some of the cassette stuff is it's almost like a full story. Like you feel like you can't just play one or two tracks. Like you got to listen to the whole thing.
Oh, well, thanks.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, again, like I said, it sounds like very personal songs and music that you were doing. And then Honest Arrow, is that around the same time? Like, when did that start?
Oh my gosh, that was a real flash in the pan. That was that was on the tail end of me playing really loud rock music. I haven't really played really loud rock music. I kind of miss it, actually. No, wait, Guts was super loud. Must have been 9 or 10 years ago. Yeah, that was a fun one. We played the fest. We actually played a split set with Des Arc at Wayward Council, where it was crazy.
Yeah.
So each band had their equipment set up, and we would play a song, and then Des Arc would play a song, and then we would play a song, and Ame and her band would start playing the song with us, and then that would end up in us like kind of making a bunch of crazy freaking noise together, and then they would kind of come into a song. That was like one of the sickest shows I've ever played in my life, and it was just like this band that was together for like 4 months or something. Like,
Yeah.
we just got together and wrote some songs and put them out. And
Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Wayward Council, I was only up in Gainesville once when it was still around and had a chance to go. And I think I still have, I picked up a 12-hour turn 7-inch. Any memories of playing at Wayward Council? I know that was a pretty popular venue at the time.
Yeah, totally. I volunteered there for years and played a ton of shows there. I mean, played a ton of shows. It was such a hub. When I first moved here, the Hardback was the hub. When I first moved here, Gainesville was such a one-horse town that if someone said they were going to the show, you knew exactly what show they were going to because it was the only show that was happening. And Gainesville now is like a four or five horse town, and there are multiple things going on any given night. And Wayward Council was existing at the same time as the Hardback, but then kind of endured beyond it. And then the Arc was going on at the same time as Wayward Council. So there were lots of places where people could, God damn it, just show up and take time, show up and just hang out and have a conversation, read a zine, listen. They always had records on at Wayward Council. You could just sit and listen to something new. There were these places where you could just be around other creative people and be nourished by that.
Right. So. Did you find that being around people like that was helping you to spark more creative ideas in some of your other projects?
I mean, I think I was just in such the milieu of it. Like, I don't remember it feeling like that. It just felt like I was a part of something.
Yeah.
It just felt like we were all just part of this bigger organism, which was kind of the Gainesville scene at the time. And, bands would have overlaps and the members that they had, or the shows, one person would play a show and play in like 3 different bands, or there was just a lot of, it just had a real like community kind of vibe. Yeah.
And you mentioned the Hardback. That's definitely one of the more, I think, well-known venues in Gainesville. What are your memories of playing the Hardback and also seeing shows at the Hardback?
Dude, the Hardback was awesome. When I first moved here, the Hardback is still going on, and it feels a little different. People were critical of it because they were like, well, why did he bring it back and call it the Hardback again? I'm like, because it's his life and it's his business, and things are different, but leave him alone. Like, this is the guy that, in the 90s, when we needed a punk club, he was there. So if he wants to open another place and call it the Hardback, that's his business. So the Hardback at the time, any night that you showed up, you could pretty much expect something different. You would go there and some naked dude would be reading poetry, or I saw at the drive-in there And I was literally this far away from the lead singer. Like, Spoken Radon played there, Hot Water Music, Less Than Jake, all of like the bands that put Gainesville on the map. Like that was like the mothership for all of that. It was a petri dish, and yeah, it was a hub for sure. And you know, Rob McGregor was the sound guy. Like it was all, there were like some key players, man. And Alan Bushnell, who ran the hardback, was one of them. But I mean, it was a place where you could see an international touring band. It was
Right.
also a place where if you were like a high school band and you wanted to have your first show, it was a great place to book a show. And when I first moved here, I went there, and he offered me a job. So that was my job. I worked the door, I worked the bar. For a while, I was the cleaning person. I mean, I just did whatever. And I think almost every band that I was in at the time played there until they closed.
What were some of the most wildest moments you may have had, whether it could have been work at the door, it may have been just attending a show or playing a show? Any moments stand out in your mind that you want to kind of reflect back on?
It was okay. So, you know, I just really need to know who the audience is for this. Maybe we should do a separate interview and I'll tell you all the gossip and stuff. But it was always the skaters versus the skinheads. Okay, always. And like skinheads were just being skinheads. Like they were spewing Nazi stuff. Like every now and then they would posse up and come down to the hardback, and the skaters would like kick their asses. And like, you know, there was always going to be some violence between these two groups of people. I remember that being a pretty omnipresent theme. I mean, I of course remember the last nights of the hardback where every band that had ever played there, and I was pretty sure Dan Archie was going to burn the place down. He was breathing fire on the roof. People were lighting fireworks inside the bar. But I mean, at night we worked there, so we would stay late. We would just drink beer and play pool. We would just kind of made it our living room. So
I'm sure you had to just be there to experience a lot of these things.
it was insane. Yeah,
I bet.
It seems like another world, man. It seems,
yeah.
I don't know. Sometimes it seems like something I feel lucky to have been a part of, but also feel like kind of lucky to have survived, you know? Yeah.
Especially at that time, because, you know, I mean, yeah, there were, you know, I mean, at least from what I remember going to shows at that, you know, late 90s, you know, there weren't a lot of women that would be at some of these shows, and especially getting into the pits. Did you find yourself kind of getting into the thick of things, or you just kind of just sit back and just watch from a distance?
I was always in the thick of things. I was always in everybody's business, but I do remember, and you know, I come from a different, Pensacola was not supportive of women playing music. I remember being on tour with Bitchin and playing in a smaller venue that was packed and people were circle pitting. And I'm political, and I consider myself an activist, and I am a vocal person, and I'm a creative person. So I never really considered myself to be like a punk or a punk rocker. I assume that I check off a lot of the boxes, but there are so many things that did happen during those times that didn't feel very feminist, didn't feel very supportive. We were in this small venue, and I got hit in the face with my own microphone because people were going so crazy. So I stopped playing for a minute, and I was like, okay, are all my teeth there? Am I bleeding? Like, what's going on? And the guy who had knocked the microphone into my face told me if I couldn't handle getting hit in the face, then I shouldn't be playing punk rock music. And I was, man, I almost just walked out. I did. If it wouldn't have been for Todd and Caroline, you know, not wanting to let them down, and the handful of people who were there who are our friends, I probably would have just walked out of the room.
Were there any fights?
No, just people having violent fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I don't know, there was no like girls rock camp when I was growing up. There was no like, things are so different now, and I'm so fucking grateful that it is, because women have so much to say. You know what I mean? Women are women's perspectives are so crucial and vital. It's strange to me, or maybe it fucking makes sense, that there was a time where it wasn't encouraged or even hindered. So I mean, things that in the music industry, I mean, you know, Kesha, Britney Spears, even like women who are filthy rich playing music, they're still being manipulated. And I don't know, sometimes it's interesting. It's interesting. Sometimes being creative isn't exactly a safe place for women.
And with all the stuff that's been, you know, going on, the whole Me Too movement, that sort of thing, do you find that that has been something that you've taken on in your own music to speak about? You kind of feeling very strongly about that type stuff too?
No, I just do my own thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, my songwriting soulmate and I, we just play music and we just put it out. I prefer to play shows that have bands that have other women in them. I enjoy supporting girls rock camp and stuff like that, but I think producing, for me, just producing quality things that are listenable, that will inspire, that are emotive, that's kind of just my way of contributing.
Was Guts the first band you were in that was all female?
No, I played in another little flash in the pan band that was all women. We called it Boba Fett.
Okay.
And there was no one that I think you would know, but man, that band was wicked. It was super cool. And then, yeah, I think finding, in my experience, finding a drummer who is female was always hard. So there were several bands that I played in that would be a handful of women and a guy playing drums.
How would you find people, these people that you just knew from your collective of friends, or did you have to kind of reach out and post an ad somewhere? Like, how are you finding people to hook up with you in that?
No, we just had these like hubs of people. But I remember I was playing in Rumbleseat at the time, and I remember Caroline from Bitchin knocking on my front door, and I opened the door and she was standing there with her bass and she's like, "Let's jam." And I was like, "All right, dude, like, what's your name again?" You know? So that was, and actually the same thing happened with the drummer for Vanbuilderass, John.
Yeah.
He came down from New York and knocked on the door, and I opened the door. He's like, "I'm your new drummer," or however people say it when they're from New York.
I don't know if it's like that, but when you were kind of going through like a sound check, what would be a song that you would warm up to? Is there like a certain like cover song that you would kind of warm up when you were kind of checking out all your instruments and stuff?
Yeah, when I was younger, I saw this movie, Natural Born Killers, and Juliette Lewis sang this song when she was like getting arrested or something, and I'd always mic check with that song. I don't know why. It had some pretty good range. So
yeah.
when I check, I have to check for like how incredibly loud I am, because to have any kind of dynamic expression on the microphone, you have to kind of test the higher end of it,
Right.
or it'll peak, it'll max out. So.
If you were to put out a covers album, what do you think would be the first track on that covers record?
Oh, gosh. Out of all the songs I've ever played, or out of all the songs in the entire world?
No, the songs that have inspired you, song that you would take on from another artist or band.
Gosh, I guess any given day, week, or year, the answer might be different, but I don't know. Gosh, that's a really tough one. I really don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah. And I really do look at a recording as just like a snapshot of where you are at that point in your life. So it's
Yeah.
really, it's a picture,
Yeah.
right? So I think that I would feel overwhelmed if every time I recorded an album, it had to be like the finite ends all, like what's the most inspiring thing to me?
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like it's
Yeah.
all just like a little pile of inspiration that leads to this little time capsule. And it's important to me and it's relevant to me, but whether it has meaning to someone else is really, really up to them, you know?
Sure. Right.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
agree. As we kind of round things out, I know two other venues that I know pop up on a lot of flyers from the bands you played with over the years, Common Grounds and Full Circle. Any memories of those two venues?
Well, Full Circle, no, I don't remember anything about it. I'm sorry, I have a terrible memory. But Common Grounds was Bill Bryson's spot. And Bill Bryson is just a local treasure of a person. He's just always involved in promoting people. I think the big project that he's working on now is restoring the Florida Theater, which was a big venue, a huge, like literally a massive venue space wise. The Flaming Lips played there, so I guess that kind of puts it on the map as being a big venue and a
Yeah.
big deal kind of way. But for him to take that on, that's wild. That's of monumental proportions.
Was it one of those theaters? I don't know much about that one. Was it one of those theaters that was back from like, the 30s, 40s, 50s that he's now restoring?
Yeah, yeah. And it was a theater, like a
Mm.
theater.
Right.
And then from time to time they would just throw on shows. And then I think it became just a straight up venue for a while, but always kept the name Florida Theater. But some of my favorite venues in Gainesville, personally, unfortunately, the Atlantic isn't having shows anymore. I think they were kind of a COVID casualty. And I really love the backyard at Boca. My friends own that place and they have a really great way of running things. So the whole Palomino Boca area is really near and dear to my heart. The downtown plaza is wonderful. It's just nice. Like you just never know who's going to show up to those kind of shows. Like whole families will come and bring their kids and everyone's just, it just feels really wholesome. And Heartwood Music Studios now, it's just, they're blowing it out of the water with showing what kind of elegance can go into a venue. It's just very elegant. The bands they just treat you like you ought to be treated, like
Right.
they just are so on top of what they're doing. And they did a really good job of feeding logs into the creative fire during the COVID thing, just offering outdoor shows and Zoom shows. It was a hard time for musicians.
Absolutely. Yeah. I think a lot of the businesses and stuff that survived it got creative and quickly and were able to make that pivot to Zoom or outdoor or whatever they had to do to keep it going. So, but yeah,
I feel like I'm emerging back into the world. I mean, it's strange for me to think about. Honestly, my bandmate, she recently said that she felt ready to start playing shows again. Just last week, she said that. But like I said, we've been practicing and playing outdoors a lot. So I look forward to playing with her more. And
nice. Well, I'm glad to hear that you're still active and doing all that. And if there was one inactive Gainesville band that you would like to see reunite, who would that be?
I would love to see, oh God, Anne Prague, my friend Matt Raddick's band. So I mean, again, so under the radar, but their Blood River cassette was just so beautiful. Oh my God, from start to finish, the whole thing is beautiful. Hollow Paw was a really great indie band. We'll do anything to see Travis Tristo play again. I don't know, lots of stuff.
It's interesting though. The ones that you really want to bring back are the ones that have the least amount of output. In some cases, it's like you crave.
That's why.
You crave
Yeah.
more. It's
Yeah.
like So
Yeah.
I am with you on that. Couple last questions here. So as I'm sure you probably know, you being into yoga, coming up in June, late June, June 21st, I want to say, is International Yoga Day. So that it happens in Gainesville. So what do you do on International Day of Yoga in Gainesville?
I used to do yoga, I guess. Oh, again, I mean, I wish I could tell you that I'm like, I don't know. I'm really good at organizing things sometimes, and I'm really good at being out and being like a kind of cultural hub kind of person, but I honestly just stick to myself so much. On International Yoga Day, maybe I'll do some yoga, but I don't know if I'm gonna be out in the world like doing the whole yoga culture.
Yeah, that sounds fitting. I just was curious, like what actually goes on. Like, do they block off parts of the city? Like, what happens?
Oh gosh, no. No. It's like, yoga studios will post like hashtag International Yoga Day or something
Okay.
like that. There probably could be more organization around it, honestly.
Yeah. Gotcha. And what kind of jokes have you gotten over the years with Samantha Jones, Sex and the City character? Have you ever got anyone rib on you for that at all over the years?
Every time I check out at Publix, and I like want to buy a bottle of wine or something, and they check my ID. So.
What is your reaction usually to those situations?
I've never seen the show. I mean, I always just tell people like I was Samantha Jones first. Like
that's true. That is true. Her character is not the most squeaky clean when it comes to what she's into. I don't know. So yeah, I think that parallel is much more apart. So
well, usually people are like, "Oh my god," I'm like, "Oh, I'm glad for that for you."
And I think there's another singer, maybe from the 60s or 50s, whose name is Samantha Jones too.
What?
Who put out some records? Yeah, if you Google Samantha Jones musician, you will come up, and there's another one. Yeah,
it's probably me because I'm actually a vampire.
Maybe that could be another life before. Yeah. So to kind of round out the interview here, I want to kind of give it to you to kind of close it out. Anything you want to share to listeners, to fans of yours, supporters over the years, anyone that has had, I know that I'm sure it's a long list, but anyone you wanted to just kind of call out, I will pitch it off to you there, Samantha.
Well, one band that I'm surprised you didn't mention was Slang. And that was a band that I played in during the ARC years with Micah Daw and Patrick Quinney. And you actually hit the whole, like, you were very thorough. And I was surprised that you missed that one because that's one of my favorite bands that I've ever been in. But they're on Harlan Records, which is on Bandcamp, and Ashtray does want to put out their stuff on all digital streaming platforms, and I'm excited and eager for that to happen. Other than that, as far as wrapping things up, I guess just because I started playing music before the internet was a huge thing, there's very little evidence of how important music was to me at a certain time, or whether I was important to music at a certain time. And when I'm called upon, like, for example, in this interview, to like provide some background stuff or provide even pictures, it's really hard for me to find. And I guess it's thrilling for me to meet a person like yourself who's doing this for musicians in Florida and wanted to have me be a part of it, and valued what I had to say about my career from start to where we are now. So I guess keep listening, keep looking for things, keep digging things up, keep providing things. So it's been really interesting for me lately to kind of have the earlier things that I feel like aren't really as readily out there be remembered and honored. So I hope a lot of women get that opportunity and experience, and I just appreciate it a lot.
I usually don't say a lot after that, but I want to really thank you for sharing that, Samantha. And I apologize for missing. I know it was a little.
You did great. That just happened to be one of my favorites.
I think I had it down, but I had other notes, and I think I just overlooked it. So
I mean, you also didn't ask about the lazy slobs or the couch.
I know and the lazy slobs. There was what was it? There's like a compilation of like 3 other bands that you were on for that.
Yeah.
And wasn't that one of the members of Clairmel on that record?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Clairmel was on that record.
Yeah, they're on that record. But in the Lazy Slobs, I thought there was like one of the members of Clairmel was in. No, maybe I'm
me and this very brilliant caffeinated guy named James Bozzella, maybe appropriately, and then this kind of Rasta hippie dude who could just shred on drums. So yeah,
it's a lot, we this is definitely one of those interviews. I'm like, yeah, this could easily be a 3-part episode. Really, it could be.
Gosh.
But
decade after decade. Right. Well, I think it bears mentioning that my best friend Kara Smith and I are playing in a band, which right now is called Ursa Luna. And then I recently found out, because my kids play Pokemon, that there's also a Pokemon called Ursa Luna. It's a new Pokemon. They have new Pokemons. So we might be changing the name of that. But we're recording and we're putting out an album, and it should be
nice.
out. Yeah. So that's worth giving a little shout out to, I guess.
Absolutely. Is this going to be a digital only release on Ashtray?
I don't know. I mean, I know that they're waiting for it. I know that they have done some vinyl stuff. But again, with the vinyl stuff, it's always like, well, you're going to tour, you're going to sell these records. And so I don't know.
Right.
I don't know if we'll be tour. I would love to tour. I don't know if Kara would love to tour, but I'm excited to put it out and play shows and stuff.
It's been a long time since you've had something out on vinyl.
Yeah.
Could be the right.
Again, I'm not much of a collector, so
Yeah. Well, if something does come out, I will definitely support you, and I'm sure others will too, of course. So, but it's been a pleasure having you on. I thank you for all your time, and good luck with your current project. And I'm sure it's only a matter of time before there's 3 or 4 other things that you're doing.
I know, right? The dang pandemic slowed me down. All right. Well, thanks for everything. I really appreciated your time.
Thank you, Samantha. Take care.
Yeah, have a good one.